Most players in GOAT format know a few different tricks involving Snatch Steal, such as using it in combination with Tsukiyomi to permanently keep the monster. But one trick that almost no one knows, and I've only seen come up once in the entire history of GOAT format, and that was in a match that Chris Perovic was involved in, has to do with Snatch Steal and Priority. So you might be thinking, what exactly does Snatch Steal have to do with Priority, right? Those are two totally different things. And the thing is that Priority is a bit misunderstood in GOAT format in general. And the thing that you need to know about Priority is that the turn player will have Priority to use either a Spell Speed 2 or the Ignition effect of a monster anytime after a chain resolves, or of course after a summon resolves. Now normally using Priority after a chain resolves doesn't come up very often, but I'm gonna here play out a scenario where it did come up, and it was very important, and probably even game deciding here. So the turn player activated Snatch Steal, targeting the opponent's Blackluster Soldier, and here what happened is that the opponent decided to use Book of Moon to try to save the Blackluster Soldier from the Snatch Steal. Now the turn player, wanting to take that Blackluster Soldier, decided, I'm not going to let that Book of Moon resolve. I'm going to use Solemn Judgment. So the opponent, didn't have anything that he could chain to Solemn Judgment because it was Spell Speed 3. So this 3-link chain here resolved. So Book of Moon was negated, Snatch Steal resolved, and Blackluster Soldier changed sides. So what happens now? Well, what happened in the actual game was the opponent said, okay, now that this chain is resolved, I want to use Dust Tornado to kill the Snatch Steal. The problem is that they can't do that yet because a chain has just finished resolving and the turn player has priority, right? The turn player is the player who activated Snatch Steal. So upon realizing this, what happened is, the player who took control of the Blackluster Soldier said, okay, I'm going to declare BLS's effect. I'm going to banish your face-down monster, and then the opponent can chain Dust Tornado on the Snatch Steal, right? So we resolve this chain backwards. Snatch Steal goes to the graveyard. Blackluster Soldier comes back, and then that monster is banished. So that's how that works. So it doesn't come up very often, but just remember that anytime after any chain resolves, the turn player will in fact have priority, right? That's priority for Spell Speed 2 or higher, or priority for the Ignition effect of a monster. So this second trick here that I'm going to show you involving Creature Swap isn't nearly as situational as the last one. It involves Scapegoat and King Tiger Wangu, and these are cards that do see a fair bit of play. Scapegoat and Creature Swap are maxed out in most GOAT control decks, as I'm recording this in 2020, and King Tiger Wangu, while it's not nearly as popular as it was 1 or 2 years ago, it still sees play in sort of various anti-meta, stun or beast decks. Card is normally very good because it tends to brick cards like Scapegoat and Metamorphosis, two of the most popular cards in the format. But here I'm going to show you how we're going to get a bit of mileage out of our Scapegoat against this King Tiger Wangu that we normally would not be able to. And this trick here involves knowing how King Tiger's effect works. And it specifically is a trigger effect, not a continuous effect, which means that it cannot interrupt the current chain. So what would you do here? Some people might set their Magical Merchant and Creature Swap it over to their opponent. Others might just set the Magical Merchant, wait for the opponent to attack into it, hope they get something good off of it. But here in this situation that I set up here, where opponent's at 1700 life points, how convenient, we actually have game on board. So here's how you do this. right? Clearly, we're going to want to use this creature swap to take our opponent's Wangu, but how can we do that and also give our opponent a clear field? So here's how. We need to set a monster here, which in this case is Magical Merchant, in order for a creature swap to be something that we can legally activate. So we do in fact activate creature swap, but what we're going to do is we are going to chain to our own card. So we are going to chain Scapegoat to our creature swap. Note, we can't activate Scapegoat because we haven't summoned this turn. And now what happens is the chain just resolves backwards. So Scapegoat resolves. 4 goat tokens are summoned. And King Tiger Wangu, like I said, it's a trigger effect, so it actually can't activate yet. It has to wait until the whole chain resolves. So we are going to resolve the whole chain. Now, creature swap is going to resolve. We are going to give our opponent a goat token. They only have one choice regarding what to give us. So now, our chain is resolved. King Tiger Wangu says, hey, it looks like some monsters are summoned that I can kill. So that goes off. These goat tokens die, and the other goat token also dies, and then now we have a clear shot for game. How convenient. So, this is definitely helpful if you're playing, like, a goat control deck against really any kind of deck with King Tiger Wangu, because, like I said, normally it is hard to get mileage out of Scapegoat against these decks, but if you have Scapegoat and Creature Swap together along with any monster, you actually can get some good mileage out of that card. So I hope that tip helps you guys. Now, this last trick here, I have never seen actually done before in a game, but it's a trick that I realized that you could do after I very carefully examined some cards' older text. And this trick here involves enemy controller. Now, normally, if you chain enemy controller to a monster's effect, you don't take control of that effect, right? The effect is still owned by the person who actually used it. So, for example, if your opponent flips Dakochi and you chain enemy controller to take control of the Dakochi, they're still gonna draw the card, not you, because it's their effect, not yours. However, there's sort of one weird exception to this rule, and that involves Sacred Crane. So, Sacred Crane, very common card played in Reasoning Gate decks, usually a 2 of or a 3 of, so you're definitely going to encounter it a fair bit. So something that you want to know, if you're playing enemy controller, is how enemy controller works when used on Sacred Crane. So here, our opponent has activated Reasoning. We've decided not to call level 4. We'll say we called level 8. Our opponent has special summoned to Sacred Crane. They say, hey, I'm going to activate its effect. And you decide to chain enemy controller and take the Sacred Crane. So what happens here? Who draws the card? And you might think, well, as far as I know, the player who activated Reasoning should draw the card, right? Well, here the answer is a bit surprising, which is that in this case, the player who used enemy controller draws a card with Sacred Crane. And the reason why is because this text here that's on Dueling Book that says, if this card is special summoned, draw 1 card, this text is wrong for GOAT format. Prior to 2014, Sacred Crane had a very small but important difference in its text. And I'll pull it up here on the screen for you guys to see. And in 3 separate printings prior to 2014, what Sacred Crane said is, when this card is special summoned, the controller of this card draws 1 card. The key phrase there being the controller. And here you can clearly see the controller is us. So we will draw a card, not them. And some people find this very hard to believe, but I even did the work of talking with an OCG text expert just to confirm that that was actually what Sacred Crane said in the OCG2 in its original text. And he confirmed that, yes, in both the OCG and the TCG, what it says is its controller draws one card. So this wasn't some weird upper deck printing mistake where they gave the card the wrong text. And in fact, there's even another card, Molten Zombie, whose text is just like it, where it says, the controller draws one card. So this comes up quite rarely, and like I said, I've never even seen anyone do it, mostly because I think on Dueling Book, people don't know that Sacred Crane's text is wrong. But if you're using enemy controller, maybe as a tech in a Goat control deck, maybe as like a tech in a Monarch deck, it's definitely worth noting how this works here against Reasoning Gate. Because, you know, not only in this case have we stopped them from using their Monster Gate this turn, if, for example, they have it, but now we've drawn a card instead of them. So that's a huge swing of advantage there. And it can definitely make the difference of whether you win or lose versus a Reasoning Gate deck.